Junior Science.
Hello, young neighbors. Welcome to Junior Science, to talk about the mysterious power of magnetism. Magnetism was discovered by the ancient Greeks over 25 centuries ago. They found that a certain rock, which they called lodestone, was able to attract pieces of iron. Later, this mysterious power to attract iron was given the name magnetism, and all the things that had this power were called magnets. Now, today we're going to have a lot of fun with magnets, and you can too, right at home. All you need is a small steel bar magnet, the kind you can get at any toy store. With a magnet like that, you can make other iron and steel things into magnets simply by stroking them. Let's try it with a knitting needle. Make sure you stroke it in only one direction. Soon you'll find that you've turned the knitting needle into a magnet. You can pick up small iron things with it. But since the magnetic power of any magnet is concentrated at its ends, you can pick things up only at the ends of the needle, never at the middle. The ends of a magnet, the 2 points where the magnetic power is concentrated, are called the poles of the magnet. If you hang a small magnet in the air, it will arrange itself so that it points in a certain way. The pole of the magnet that points to the north is called the North Pole, and the pole that points to the south is called the South Pole. Every magnet, no matter how it is shaped, has a North Pole and a South Pole. In any substance that can be magnetized, like iron or steel, every little particle is a tiny magnet with a North Pole and a South Pole. In an unmagnetized piece of iron, the little particles point in any old direction, like the ones you see here. But when you magnetize the iron, the little particles line up in one direction, with all the North Poles facing one way, turning one end of the iron into a North Pole and the other into a South Pole. If a magnet is broken, then each piece becomes a magnet with a North Pole and a South Pole of its own. And you can prove this for yourself. Get a sewing needle and stroke it to make it a magnet. You can see it's a magnet by putting it near some iron filings. The filings cling to its end. Now break the needle in half. In order not to cut yourself, put the needle inside of a handkerchief and then break it. Now bring both halves near the iron filings. The filings will cling to the ends of both pieces. So you see that by breaking a magnet in half, you get two magnets. Now, as we saw before, every magnet has two poles, a North Pole and a South Pole. If you bring the South Pole of one magnet near the South Pole of another, they repel each other, push each other away. If you bring a North Pole of one magnet near a North Pole of another, they repel each other too. But if you bring a North Pole of one magnet near a South Pole of another, they attract each other. That's the rule which is true for all magnets. Like poles repel, unlike poles attract. And knowing that, you can have some fun. Stroke about half a dozen large sewing needles with a bar magnet. Use the same end of the magnet and stroke in the same direction on all the needles. The eyes of the needles are all North Poles. The points are all South Poles. Stick the needles into corks and float them, points down, in a dish of water. Now the fun starts. Remember that the eyes of the needles are all North Poles, and the tips, which are in the water, are all South Poles. Now, when you bring the South Pole of the magnet near the eyes of the needles, they are attracted to it, because unlike poles attract. But the North Pole of the magnet repels the needles because like poles repel. Now, a little while ago, we made a needle into a magnet by stroking it. Actually, you can make a thing into a magnet without ever touching it to a magnet. Here is a nail which is not magnetic. But if you bring a magnet near it without touching it at all, the nail becomes a magnet. The reason the nail became a magnet without touching the other magnet is that the force of magnetism extends all around a magnet. You can actually see the path that magnetism takes around a magnet by placing a magnet under a sheet of paper. Sprinkle iron filings over the paper, and you will see how the magnetic force is concentrated at the poles and then flows all around and back through the magnet on both sides. This area around a magnet in which the magnetic force can be felt is called the magnetic field. And if any magnetic substance, like a nail, is placed in a magnetic field, it becomes magnetized. Now, this magnetic field cannot only penetrate through air, but through glass, wood, paper, through almost any substance that cannot itself be magnetized. By putting something that can be magnetized on top of a thin piece of wood and a magnet underneath the wood, you can mystify your friends. You can make the object move anywhere on the board at your command. Now, we saw before that if you hang a small magnet in the air, it will swing around until one pole points north. The reason that happens is because the Earth itself acts as if there were a big magnet inside of it, with one pole up here and another down here. A compass is just like the swinging magnet. It's nothing but a little magnet balanced on a pivot, so it can swing around and always tell you which way is north. If you want to have some fun with your friends, you bet 'em you can find out which way is north in just about 1 minute and without having a compass. And here's the way you do it. Get a small dish of water and float a flat cork in it. Then stroke a needle with the south pole of a magnet, stroking from the point toward the eye. Now put the needle on the cork, and it will turn around and point north. Now, there's one other way in which a piece of iron can be made into a magnet, and that is by electricity. If we put a compass under an electric wire and connect the wire to a dry cell, the compass needle jumps. That's because there's a magnetic field around any wire that carries electricity, and the field pushes the compass needle. Now, if you concentrate the magnetic field around a wire by winding the wire into a coil, you can make an electromagnet. Here's how you do it. Watch carefully, and you'll be able to make one at home. An electromagnet that actually works. Get a 3-inch bolt with a nut on it and some number 18 insulated copper wire at a hardware store. Wind the wire around the bolt to make a coil with several layers. Be sure to leave about 2 feet of wire on each end. Now attach one end of the wire to a dry cell. Now your electromagnet is ready. To turn it into a magnet, just close the circuit. To stop it from being a magnet, open the circuit. And there you have it, a homemade electromagnet, which works exactly the same as the gigantic electromagnets that are used in factories and steelworks to lift and carry tons of material. Just another way in which science is used to make life better for all of us.
Junior, science.